The Senate will come to order. Senator Mann,
Mr. President, I impose a call of the Senate.
the Senate is now under call. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and that the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, if you would be so kind as to stand. In our tradition, we always start with prayer, and today's chaplain is our own Senate chaplain, Reverend Kirsten Fryer. She's from Bethlehem Lutheran in the Midway in St. Paul. As a gentle reminder, after the prayer, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good afternoon, Senators. Today is Earth Day, as I am sure you are well aware. And in 2015, Pope Francis wrote this beautiful A Prayer for Our Earth. And so as we join with Roman Catholic siblings throughout Minnesota and around the world in grieving his death, please join me today as I share Pope Francis's prayer for the earth. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. Amen.
Thank you, members. The Secretary will take the roll.
Abler, Anderson, Barr, Boldon, Carlson, Champion, Clark, Coleman, Swadzinski, Dahms, Dibble, Dornick, Draheim, Drazkowski, Duckworth, Farnsworth, Fateh, Frentz, Green, Grunhagen, Gustafson, Hoschild, Herr, Hoffman, Housley, Howe, Jasinski, Johnson, Johnson-Stewart, Klein, Kreun, Kunesh, Kupek, Lang, Latz, Liskey, Limmer, Lucero, Mann, Marty, Matthews, May-Quaid, McEwen, Miller, Mitchell, Mohamed, Murphy, Nelson, Umu-Verbaten, Pappas, Pa, Port, Pratt, Putnam, Rarick, Rasmussen, Rest, Seeberger, Utke, Weber, Wiesenberg, Westland, Westrom, Wickland, Zhang.
Members, a quorum is present. The following members intend to vote from a remote location pursuant to Rule 40.7, Senator Dibble, Senator Latch, and Senator Wickland. Senator Westland, I see you right there. I was thinking about you because you're on my mind, but I meant to say Senator Wickland. Members, if you want to follow along, I am starting to read from our Senate agenda, dated Tuesday, April 22nd. And we will begin with the second order of business, executive and official communications. The following communications were received and referred as indicated. Members, we will now proceed to the third order of business, which is messages from the House. The Secretary will read the message.
Mr. President, I have the honor to announce the passage by the House of the following House files herewith transmitted. House File numbers 601, 854, 1027, 1722, and 2554. Signed, Patrick Duffy Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Members, no action is required. We'll now go to the fourth order of business, which is first reading of House bills. The House files have been given their first reading and referred as indicated. Members, will now proceed to the fifth order of business, which is reports of committees. Senator Murphy for a motion to adopt the committee reports.
Mr. President, I move the committee reports printed in the agenda and the addendum be adopted.
On the adoption of the committee reports, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, we will now go to the sixth order of business, which is second reading of Senate bills. The Secretary will read the Senate file numbers.
Senate file numbers 2216, 3196, and 2865.
The Senate files have been given their second reading. Members will now proceed to the eighth order of business, which is introduction and first reading of Senate bills. The bills listed on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated. Members will now proceed to the ninth order of business, which is motions and resolutions. We will adopt the author's motions as one motion. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, Senate Resolution number 32 will be referred to the Committee on Rules and Administration, and no action is required. However, members, we are remaining under motions and resolutions. Senator Murphy to designate special orders.
Mr. President, pursuant to Rule 26, I designate the following bills be made special orders for immediate consideration. Members, the list is on your desk.
Members, that is correct. The list is on your desk. It is entitled Special Orders. We will start with Senate File number 2298, Senator Report for the Omnibus Housing and Homelessness Prevention Policy and Appropriations Bill. Senator Report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, the cost of housing is higher than ever in Minnesota, and the dream of home ownership is slipping out of reach for more and more families. Housing affordability is under threat from extreme tariffs and federal instability. Now is the time to ensure that every Minnesotan has a safe and stable place to call home. This bill builds on the historic investments made in 2023 and 24 by supporting critically needed housing resources, including family homelessness prevention, support for workforce housing infrastructure in Greater Minnesota, and programs to help new families purchase homes for the first time. I will say that this bill meets the moment of our budget realities, but not the realities of Minnesotans' lives. One of the biggest reasons our state is in this budget position is because tax revenues are down from estimates. The top two reasons Minnesotans gave for spending less was because they were spending too much of their income on housing and health care. We need to continue to fight to lower these costs. I hope through this process we will continue to prioritize housing for all Minnesotans. This wasn't a fun bill to write. It wasn't an easy bill. It's a small amount of money in the face of vast housing needs across the state. We need policy changes to make it easier and less expensive to build housing. We need housing infrastructure bonds. We need rental assistance. We need manufactured home resources. I hope we will continue to move these conversations forward through this process. There are only 3 major program spends in this bill. The decision we made in moving more into FHPAP is the biggest thing we can offer Minnesotans at this moment, some level of stability. We know that stability costs significantly less than if we allow families to fall into homelessness. The Greater Minnesota Infrastructure Grant Program, if we ever hope to have housing growth in Greater Minnesota to the level that we need, to the level that communities are asking for, to the level that businesses are asking for, we have to invest. Infrastructure is not a cost they can bear on their own. It's an investment that we must make, and it's a small amount of money to build into the base so we can continue to make investments year after year. It's an amount of money we hope we can revisit in the future. Finally, the First Generation Down Payment Assistance Program. This program is deeply connected to communities and allows them the freedom to use different mortgage products that suit different communities, different people's needs, and for that reason, we're building it into the base as an ongoing program. It's nowhere near the amount of money the First Generation Down Payment Assistance Program needs, But it puts our values on the page and says we need to continue this program to meet people where they are and provide them with the products that fit their lives and start the work of closing the shameful racial homeownership gap in Minnesota. I hope with our joint targets, we will end up with a strong final budget that meets this moment. I want to thank Vice Chair Boldon, Lead Lucero, Senators Mohamed, Draheim, Pa, Clark, Housley, Putnam, Abler, and Coleman, our CA, Courtney Schaaf, CLA, CJ Larson, Jack Dudley, researchers Will Freeman and Andy Larson, and our incredible nonpartisan staff, Laura Painter and Eric Olafson. And with that, Mr. President, I have the A21 amendment.
Senator Port offers the A21 amendment. The Secretary will report the A21 amendment.
Senator Port moves to amend Senate File Number 2298 as follows. Page 22, line 1, delete one member. This is the A21 amendment.
Senator Port to your A21 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is mostly a technical amendment that finalizes the membership of the Insurance Task Force and clarifies the objective and recommendations of the task force.
Any discussion, any further discussion on the A21 amendments? Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. And if Senator Port would just yield for a quick question.
Senator Port, will you yield? She will yield. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Port. And I appreciate the conversation we had just prior to the bill here on the floor. It's my understanding, I do have an amendment to the amendment, but I think it's drafted to the A19. So my question, Mr. President and Senator Port, is potentially my amendment to your amendment needs to be redrafted if you're offering the A21 and not the A19.
Senator Port to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Lucero, that is correct. It was changed from the A19 to the A21.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I guess I'm looking for advice what to do here on the fly.
Senator, well, I'll go to Senator Port. She may have a solution. Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Lucero. I am willing to withdraw the A21 for a few moments while you work on getting that redrafted, and we can go on to some other folks' amendments and then come back to this one.
The A21 amendment has been withdrawn. Members, I will now go to Senator Abler, who is not on the floor right now. Senator Abler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. And I'll move the A22.
Senator Abler moves the A22 amendment. The Secretary will report the A22.
Senator Abler moves to amend Senate File Number 2298 as follows. Page 14 after line 20, insert. This is the A22 amendment.
Senator Abler to your A22 amendment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is probably my sixth effort to make a difference with some individuals who live in actually Coon Rapids and around the metro in a housing that's called LITEC. And the name of the corporation that owns them is well known. I am not here on the floor today to impugn them, except by reference. And the question, Mr. President, that reflects around this is, how do you legislate morality? How do we legislate ethic when it comes to business practices? How do we tell a company that, here, we'll give you some money to go set up some low-income housing, and then please treat these people with the respect as though you were a company that was not for profit because you cared and you wanted to serve. And Mr. President, it's my opinion that in these projects, there's plenty of money to be made at reasonable rent increases. The way these are set up, the one in Coon Rapids, it was a $30 million project. The feds provided $10 million of tax credits, and then the investors had to go borrow 2/3. And unfortunately, what somehow they got the idea was they could get a return on all 100%, and really none of the money in there is even theirs at risk. They're regulated through Minnesota HFA and through some federal agencies to limit the rent increases as a number. Unfortunately, area median income, which is the current index, ran afoul of trouble during the COVID time when it went up 12%. Many of these companies did not raise rent 12%. This particular company did and continues to hit the ceiling at every possible time. And so, and good for that, Mr. President. This is a great business, and we're making money. Unfortunately, the individuals who are there are income limited, and so they move in getting $25,000 a year. Rent was $900. It's all great, and it creeps up to the point now that some of these, especially widows in the place I represent, are paying $1,700, living on $2,200 a month, and they say, what are we supposed to do? And they've tried every way to Sunday to find a way to study these programs, and we had some ideas, that one of which was unconstitutional. Senator Hoffman might remember in one of the bills we tried to control this rent thing. So that didn't work. We had an idea about how about related to the income of these seniors. And so this is my effort to provide a thimbleful of relief. And so it says, could you please only charge the lower of area median income or the CPI. And I think it's reasonable, and I think it would just provide, as I mentioned, a thimbleful of relief to these individuals and help them stay in their homes. And Mr. President, I believe it's in the interest of many people that I ask for a roll call, so thank you.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Abler, for bringing this amendment. It's something we've talked about for several years. I will say that the day that we discussed this in my committee was probably the worst day. I've chaired a committee. Listening to these folks come in and tell their stories about seniors who were now paying 50, 60, in one case 72% of their income to their rent was horrifying. They had signed up and taken, signed leases in a low-income apartment building, and it didn't stay that way. And Mr. President, this is not a new kind of rent control. This is simply a readjusting of the formula that already exists and is supposed to keep rent stable for these seniors. Mr. President, members, I know there are lots of feelings about rent control, but we do put guidelines on folks who have taken taxpayer money in order to build their properties. This is simply a readjustment of the formula that is used that I think will more accurately represent the change in income for the folks who live in these communities. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Lucero, we are on the A22 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank Senator Abler, Senator Port, and others. This topic is very, very challenging. We have seniors, those on fixed incomes, that are being squeezed. And that hearing, I concur with Senator Port, was definitely not fun. And Mr. President and Senator Abler, I spoke to some of your constituents after that hearing, and I explained to them it's just heart-wrenching. It is a reality that those on fixed incomes are getting squeezed. It is also a reality that we have precedent in this state when we enact rent control. It is a further detriment to the cost of housing, to the supply of housing, and I cannot support this amendment. Whether it be property taxes, whether it be the increasing of insurance costs, whether it be the increasing of the cost of goods, materials, or the cost of labor for maintenance, things continue to be more expensive. When costs go up, the price has to go up. So I am very, very sympathetic, again, to Mr. President, to Senator Abler, his constituents, and constituents in similar positions across the state. But this is treating the symptom. It's not addressing the root cause, which is increasing those costs, which drive then the cost of rent. So again, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Abler. I appreciate your effort. I appreciate the diligence that you have in serving your constituents and your community. Unfortunately, this is just not the way that we need to go. So I would encourage a no vote. Thank you.
Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Port, in talking about this amendment, described it correctly, that this is rent control. And Mr. President, we have seen this as a failed experiment here in the state of Minnesota before. We don't have to look any further than the capital city here in Minnesota to see how rent control had a chilling effect on housing options being developed for Minnesotans. We got to see canceled developments. We got to see slower economic growth. We saw people leaving the city in response. And Mr. President and members, I fear that pursuing a path of more rent control will lead to fewer options and less competition for these types of for this type of housing. How you address higher housing costs is by having more housing, having more options. And this, Mr. President, will send a chilling effect at anyone who is looking to develop this kind of housing here in the state of Minnesota. Because this might be the standard today, but the legislature could change it in a session. They could continue to tinker with that number, and that makes it so that housing providers cannot plan when they're looking to make an investment. And so, Mr. President, I would urge members to vote against rent control. We've seen this experiment played out. We know it doesn't work, and this isn't the right solution today.
Senator Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in support of this amendment. I initially heard of this problem in 2022, door knocking in the community, and I will say the owners of one of these businesses tried not to let candidates in because they didn't want us talking to the residents. And we found out when we finally were able to talk to the residents why. It was because they were raising rent that year 12.5%. And so we have been working on this since I got here and many of us got here in 2023 because that time there were people in my community and these other communities around the metro that when there is a 12.5% increase in your rent and you're a senior on a fixed income, you end up homeless. So there were seniors in my community because of that ended up living in their cars, that had to move with each other in one bedrooms, which is kind of not what you want to do in your golden years. A woman that had to move back in with an ex-husband, and they were concerned that might have been an abusive situation, and a lot of people that had to go get jobs. I agree that we should do more to address the root problem. But in the meantime, these seniors have been going year after year, slowly getting driven out of their homes with nowhere else to go. I just got an email yesterday, unsolicited, they didn't know this would be on the floor today, talking about how their Social Security this year is going to rise 3.6%, and they just got letters saying that their rent was about to rise by, I think it was 6.5%. And again, they have said some of us are going to end up homeless again. And sadly, this is not a group that is going to hold on to these rent increases and any stability for years and years. The fact is, people in senior housing move on, whether it's to assisted living or they pass away. There are a lot of units that are turning over. So if these companies are still looking to make a profit, there are still ways that they can do rent increases as the apartments turn over, but not to the seniors on fixed incomes that will end up homeless. And that is what is happening. So I think until we do more work on the root problem, we should not continue to kick this can down the road year after year while seniors are ending up homeless. Thank you, Senator Abler, for this amendment, and I hope people vote green for our seniors.
Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President. And to the good senator from Anoka, thank you. This has been a long, drawn-out debate, and it goes back about 7 years ago. So if you would pertain, Mr. President, I want to tell you the history of why we are where we're at right here. We've tried multiple occasions and had meetings with certain companies, and it's not about rent control, folks. Just let's get this cleared up. It's about doing the right thing for some of the most wonderful people in the world, our elderly. How can you say no to grandpa and grandma in this case? When you as a company start a Section 42 housing development, you say, whew, we're going to do some wonderful things. They're getting a 33% investment back from federal tax dollars. So, for example, in Coon Rapids, there's a certain building that a certain company built. It's about a quarter mile from the river, Mr. President. This is very germane to the conversation at hand. And they built it for $36 million. $12 million went right back in the developers' pockets with the assumption that they were going to keep the rent affordable for our elderly. Lo and behold, the law establishes that you can do your area median income to raise it. Plus, there's a HUD advantage that can you raise that again, in the sense that the good senator from Anoka said 12% interest. That's tough. We've tried every session. Matter of fact, the good senator from New Hope said to me one time in caucus, if you do this provision, I'm not going to vote for your bill because you guys are tapping into some other kind of federal thing that we didn't even want to go down the road in because I had no idea what she was talking about because she speaks 18 different languages. But having said that, that's how much we've been talking about this issue. Senator Abler's good amendment establishes a doorway that says we can finally get to this issue that's in front of us. And I don't need to remind you on this one either, Senator Abler. Do you remember the certain vice president who said, we get to raise the rates on our elderly because the law allows us to do that? In my office, in front of Senator Abler and in front of a person from the other body who happens to be from Coon Rapids. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this amendment. Members, do the right thing for grandpa and grandma. Let us go in there and keep going with what's right for grandpa and grandma and vote yes.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Abler, for bringing this amendment forward. Very A for creativity. I think I told you that before. But the bottom line is still rent control. And I am just so pleased that we have all these different members realizing we have a problem in housing. It's my 9th year. I've been a broken record for 9 years complaining about housing units. And I know two things, Mr. President. I know we have a shortage of housing units. Basic supply and demand. When you have a shortage of something, the price goes up. And that's why every time we have a housing committee, I talk about creating more units. So I know that. That's the first thing I know. We have a shortage of housing units. And I know the basic principles of supply and demand. Studied it in college. The other thing we studied in college, which we saw firsthand, and Senator Rasmussen mentioned it earlier, right here in St. Paul, is that when you enact rent control of any kind, you have a decline in new products or new production of new housing units. So why, when we're short 100,000 units of housing, would we enact rent control statewide on a certain segment that probably needs it more than any other segment? I've also heard federal tax policy mentioned. We have zero control over federal tax policy. And then, you know, I could go on for an hour on a dissertation on rent control, Mr. President, but I just urge everybody to vote this down. I am happy to work with any member on this subject. I have some ideas that I think would help, but it would take a bipartisan group to work on some serious policy change across our government-subsidized housing. But rent control is not the answer. It's been proven worldwide. For 60 years, they have studied rent control, and it does not work. Thank you.
Members, we are on the A22 Abler Amendment. Senator Grudenhagen, to the amendment.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I have to rise in opposition to this also. I know Senator Abler and others who support this, their heart's in the right place. In my insurance agency, I probably got 400 to 500 seniors insured through Medicare supplements. Some of them wind up in nursing homes, assisted living, other things. I've had them crying in my office already because of the cost and they can't afford it. And I agree, we are in a crisis here, okay? But members, what we're doing here, in my opinion, rather than turning the burner down on a boiling pot of water, we're simply putting a lid on the boiling pot of water. What do I mean by that? Well, I happened to keep something from the Housing Committee a couple years ago, and I'm sure it's worse right now, but I think this illustrates the point. Again, this came from the Housing Committee a year or so ago. It shows that the average home in Minnesota cost $523,000 to build at that time. If you look at North Dakota, it's $425,000, about $100,000 cheaper. If you look at South Dakota, it's $350,000. If you look at Nebraska, Illinois, Wisconsin, even Indiana, Michigan, they're over $100,000 and some cheaper to build the same house. So members, putting a lid on rent control, you're not turning the burner down. What should be done, you should look at why the costs are where they're at, what's driving the increases, and then find out what regulations and government laws we passed to accentuate this. So you need comparative data with states around you to see what they're charging, and then make the necessary changes. It's kind of what Senator Draheim has referred to. This is not going to help. It's like experience has been shown. When you put a lid, you get shortages and the costs are even higher, or the people who build these facilities, they'll go elsewhere. By the way, one other thing, when you grow government 40% in 2 years, it's going to push the price of everything higher because it's an expense on the private sector. So members, when you want to look at the crisis we have in housing and also in this area, I would advise you to look in the mirror because you'll find the culprit is staring at you. We need to reform what we're requiring these people to do. Thank you, Mr. President. Vote no.
Any other discussions on the A22 before I go to the author of the amendment for the last word? Senator Kreun.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as I'm looking at the amendment, I'm wondering if Senator Abler would yield for a question.
Senator Abler, will you yield? He said he will yield. Senator Kreun.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Abler, looking at your amendment, it applies to projects awarded tax credits under this section in line 1.5 of the amendment. What are the tax credits that that's referring to, and are they federal tax credits or state tax credits?
Senator Abler, to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a federal program, and the tax credits are federal. Oh, I'm supposed to look at you, sorry. You're both so handsome, I don't know where to go. So the tax credits are federal. Minnesota, there is some state allowance in how to set up some of the operational parameters, and this is within that allowance.
Senator Kreun.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Abler, for that explanation. I'm really struggling with this because I've heard a lot about rent control, and I agree fully that rent control as a theory doesn't work. It does lead to higher prices. Fully understand Milton Friedman economics and all that good stuff, but the market is completely messed up here, and we're talking about projects that are being awarded tax credits and taxpayer dollars. So if you as a developer are going to accept this tax money for your project, you should expect certain strings and conditions that the government has a right to place on that, including how you can raise rent. What I'm struggling with here is that this, to me, appears to be a federal program, and it seems to me the federal government should be the one that places those terms and conditions on the tail end of it to the developers rather than the state government coming in. So I'm really struggling with it. I'm not sure. I don't think it's as simple as saying rent control bad, therefore vote no. I think it's more complicated than that, and I appreciate you offer the amendment. Thank you.
Senator Duckworth, we are on the A22. It's your turn to speak. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it, and I'm glad that Senator Kreun had an opportunity to speak before I did, because I think he touched on something that I think is warranted when you give consideration to the amendment offered by Senator Abler. I'll be the first one to stand next to Senators Lucero, Draheim, and Rasmussen and say that rent control across the board as a policy or a law of the land in the state or in our country is a terrible thing. It's been proven. We know that to be a fact. But I also agree in some fashion with what was shared by Senator Hoffman, and that I don't necessarily think we're talking about that kind of rent control here. As a matter of fact, I kind of agree with what Senator Kreun had to say when we talk about a government program having certain requirements in order to be eligible to participate in that program, or in this instance, get taxpayer dollars. And so I would ask if Senator Abler would yield for maybe a question or two, Mr. President.
Senator Abler, will you yield? He will yield. He's right across from you there, Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll resist the urge to look at him. Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Abler, when we look at this bill, the amendment that you're proposing, could you help me understand, are we talking about a broad rent control law that would be sweeping across the entire state of Minnesota, impacting renters and landlords from the Twin Cities to the suburbs to greater Minnesota? Or are we talking about a very specific subset of folks in a particular item that you're trying to solve?
Senator Abler, to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll just keep it brief. This is a very targeted amendment to a very targeted program. If you do not have federal tax credits and agreed to provide affordable housing as part of the criteria, then you are not affected at all. And in fact, if you're a nonprofit, which also runs some of these things, which they've made a point to not increase rent to any amount beyond what they absolutely need, they will not be affected either, because they already maintain a rent increases far below. It's just those who have been maximizing the rental increases on these people who are vulnerable that would be affected. Thank you.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask if Senator Abler would yield for one more question, please.
Will you yield? He will yield. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Abler. So, Senator Abler, if I was a property owner, if I was a landlord, whether I owned a single-family home in Lakeville, or maybe a 4-unit property in Anoka, or maybe even I owned an apartment building in Minneapolis or St. Paul, if I didn't utilize any taxpayer dollars as a part of this federal program, would I be subject to these rental caps or restrictions that are proposed in your amendment, or would I be free to have whatever rental rates I saw fit for the properties that I own?
Senator Abler, to the question.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and the short answer is absolutely not. Only those investor groups who are pushing up on the limit of rental increases that would go beyond the CPI and into the median income would be affected. No other anybody who has a duplex, a home for rent, a VRBO, fourplex, 92plex would be affected in any way unless it's part of this federal program. And just while I'm mentioning, Mr. President, it was suggested the feds could fix this. Mr. President, what can the feds fix? Thank you.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Abler. I, like many of my colleagues, would express a little bit of unease regarding the topic of the amendment. But at the end of the day, I think when we're talking about trying to help a very targeted group of individuals, namely the elderly, who are struggling with the cost of living, which I'll have more to say about in third reading, Mr. President, so you can please put me on your list for that. I think there are things that we have to give some consideration to as legislators that help those that are the most vulnerable, the most in need, those that would most benefit from that help, while at the same time avoiding a massive sweeping mandate like rent control from taking place in the state of Minnesota. The only thing I would say, Mr. President, and urge of all of my colleagues is this: if this amendment passes, whether today or ultimately becomes law later on this session, I would urge us all and grant the strongest caution toward avoiding allowing it to become a slippery slope which walks us closer and closer to that far more sweeping mandate of rent control in the state of Minnesota. Senator Rasmussen nailed it when he used St. Paul as an example. Rent control has decimated rental rates in building and construction opportunities. It's actually shrunk inventory and set it back. We can't allow it to become the law of the state. However, if we're going to use taxpayer dollars to help those in need, I think it's actually maybe quite reasonable to have some eligibility requirements we expect those to abide by when it comes to those who most benefit from that help that we're investing in, Mr. President. And therefore, I do see value in Senator Abler's amendment. Thank you.
Members, the last voice we'll hear before we vote on the A22 amendment is that of Senator Abler. Senator Abler, to your A22.
Thank you, Mr. President. There may be a sigh of relief going across the chamber, but I do appreciate the really good discussion about this, and I agree with every person who's spoken, except that we shouldn't do anything, that part. We should do something. And so the St. Paul's rent control experiment was an absolute failure, because it included everybody, and builders weren't building. But I think, Mr. President, if we, in partnership with the feds, are part of a program that we put money in this case, 1/3 of the money that's going into this place under the raise your right hand and promise to keep the rent affordable using an index that made sense at the time, which actually found out to be a flawed index. And as a result, the very people who sold their homes and moved into this place are now paying more money than they paid for their former mortgage and home expenses, where they now risk becoming homeless. I think at that point, it's our duty to weigh in and to say, no, we can do better than this. And so this is more a reform than any kind of control. There's already rent limits on here, rent control. These are rent-controlled apartments. But the index needs a little updating. We update things all the time. And Mr. President, I want to also make it real clear that when you vote for this, you realize this is an imperfect solution. It's an answer that may move the discussion forward. And you appreciate, as a way to show your concern for these families and these widows and people with disabilities, et cetera. But I think if you vote no today, it doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't like this particular solution. But I think the Senate as a whole is going to say we need to find a way to keep these units affordable. And I hope that those entities who are listening today, whose name I did not use out of respect for them, would understand that as a Senate, 67 of us, well, 66 of us, care about that. And I think they'll care too. But this is a thing. And so don't be abusing the people. We've given you money to help. And you have a duty, a responsibility on your oath to take care of the individuals that we have put my neighbors' funds into, our funds, our rich and poor people have tipped in money to help this happen in the name of helping the people who need the help the most. So I want them to know this group is unanimous and concerned about that problem. And so, Mr. President, I thank those for the good conversation today. Thank you very much.
A roll call was requested. A roll call has been granted. The Secretary would take the roll on the A22 amendment. Members, please vote. Senator Kunesh, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dibble votes aye.
Senator Dibble votes aye.
And Senator Wicklund votes aye.
And Senator Wicklund votes aye. Senator, how are you voting? All members having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 38 ayes and 26 noes, the A22 amendment is adopted. I'll now go back to Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to remove the A21.
The A21 has been offered, and the Secretary will report the A21 amendment.
Senator Port moves to amend Senate File Number 2298 as follows. Page 22, line 1, delete one member. This is the A21 amendment.
Senator Port to your A21.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, members, this just clarifies the final membership and clarifies the objective, mostly a technical amendment.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I sincerely appreciate Senator Port's willingness to hold off so I could offer the A50 amendment to the amendment.
The A50? Senator Lucero offers the A50 5-0 amendment. The Secretary will report the A50 amendment.
Senator Lucero moves to amend the Port A21 amendment to Senate File Number 2298 as follows. This is the A50 amendment to the amendment.
Senator Lucero to your amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you again to Senator Port and to others for forming this piece of legislation, this provision, I should say, that's included in the bill, because cost of insurance continues to rise. And this is very important that we have a work group that takes a deep dive into this to provide some recommendations. So I was working with one of my city council members last night, actually, and even today, on the importance of this and having to make these tweaks. So I appreciate the amendment. What this amendment to the amendment does is just add one additional task of the work group, which will be, it'll also look at the regulatory factors that increase insurance costs or decrease access to insurance products. So with that, Mr. President, I hope it's friendly, and I would encourage support for the amendment to the amendment.
Senator Port to the amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I take this as a friendly amendment.
All in favor of the amendment to the amendment, say aye. All those opposed, say, oh, I'm sorry, did you want to speak to this A50? I'm sorry, Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator Lucero yield for a question?
Senator Lucero, will you yield? He will yield. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Lucero, can you just explain what you mean by regulatory? It seems to me to be a fairly broad category.
Senator Lucero, directly to the question, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Pratt. The intent with the word regulatory factors would be the government mandates, requirements, anything that's happening at the government regulatory piece that might be influencing the decrease in access to insurance and therefore competition, or the increase in availability.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. And availability in housing or availability of insurance products specifically?
Senator Lucero, he's asking if you yield for a question. He will yield. Senator Lucero to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Pratt. This work group is dealing with, it is an insurance task force that's analyzing the variables and potential recommendations to lower the cost of insurance, which is both commercial and residential.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Lucero, I just wanted to make sure that we were still staying focused on the insurance piece. I appreciate your comments.
We are on the amendment to the amendment. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. We are now on the underlining amendment as amended. We are on the A21. Any additional discussion on the A21? Last voice we'll hear before we vote would be that of Senator Port. Anything, Senator Port?
Again, members, it's just a technical amendment. I encourage a yes vote.
All those in favor of the A21 amendment to, the A21 amendment as amended. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would offer the A51 amendment.
Senator McQuaid offers the A51 amendment. The Secretary will report the A51 amendment.
Senator Mayquade moves to amend Senate File Number 2298 as follows. Page 18 after line 16, insert. This is the A51 amendment.
Senator McQuaid to your A51 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. The A51 amendment is simple but really important. A bipartisan group of state attorneys general have joined a lawsuit suing over the price fixing that's happening where corporate landlords work together to share non-proprietary information on how much rent they're charging, how much churn they have, what incentives to not offer, so on and so forth. And this is raising rent prices in states across the country, including in Minnesota. Whether you use an algorithm to do it or not, price fixing is illegal, and we should not allow it to happen. And so, Mr. President, I offered the A51 amendment because I am disturbed by the increase in price fixing that we are seeing in industries across the country, but particularly when it comes to housing. Competition is good. Competition is good for our economy, and it's good for rent prices. And with that, Mr. President, I will withdraw the A51 amendment.
The A51 amendment has been withdrawn. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to offer the A12 amendment.
Senator Lucero offers the A12 amendment, and the Secretary will report the A12 amendment.
Senator Lucero moves to amend Senate File number 2298 as follows. Page 18, after line 16, insert. This is the A12 amendment.
Senator Lucero to your A12 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an amendment that was a bill that we heard in the Housing Committee. One of the dark spots on Minnesota's history is the truth that we had racial covenants and restrictions that were put onto titles, house titles. It existed for many years. Decades ago, those racial covenants, restrictive covenants, were deemed illegal, which is a good thing. Nevertheless, when a restrictive covenant is recorded on a title, it is there until it's removed. Even though restrictive covenants are illegal, there are homeowners that are going, and organizations that are working through an initiative and efforts to locate those restrictive covenants on titles and to have them removed. But when there's a recording of the document to have those removed from a homeowner's title, there is a cost. It's very nominal, 50-ish or so dollars. And so what this bill seeks to do, or this amendment seeks to do, the A12, is that the recording of the document to remove a restrictive covenant from a title would not be able to be charged. So the counties could not charge that fee to record that. I hope there's support for this, and I encourage a green vote.
Senator Port to the A12 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Lucero, we did hear this in our committee, and it passed unanimously out of our committee. This is a really important topic. It's a really sort of horrifying piece of history in Minnesota that remains on people's deeds and covenants, and we should not charge them to remove those pieces. I am fine to take this at this moment. I think that this is really a critical piece that we need to remove, but I will just say that there will probably be discussions in conference committee whether or not this stays on, but I do think it's a good bill.
Any other discussion on the A12 amendment? Senator Kreun.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator Lucero yield for a question?
Senator Lucero, will you yield? He will yield. Senator Kreun.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Lucero, do you have an estimate of a fiscal impact on our counties, or an estimate of how many of the properties would have these illegal racial covenants that might want to remove them, and how much this amendment would cost our counties?
Senator Lucero, directly to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Kreun. My memory serves that there was not a local impact note for this, and I could be wrong on that. It is going to be based on the county, because each county charges a different dollar amount for the recording fee, and most of the restrictive covenants are located in the metro area. So I think the two counties that are going to be most likely impacted are Hennepin and Ramsey. If I recall correctly, Hennepin County charges $55 to record a document, and if I recall correctly, the number that still exists are several tens of thousands in Hennepin County.
Senator Kreun.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Lucero. Obviously, racial covenants are abhorrent, never should have been utilized, and they've been not only just illegal now, but they're retroactively unenforceable. Now, having said that, I can certainly see why a property owner would want to get rid of them from their title, but somebody has to do the work, and in this case, the work has to be done by the counties. And while it's not in this bill, there will be a bill coming up here where the counties are being asked to do a bunch with their county recorders that are completely unfunded. And with all of the cost shifting in other areas of our state that are being shifted onto our counties, I think at some point we have to stop piling on. We have to be responsible legislators here and say, yes, this makes us feel good, but at the same time, we don't want to overburden our counties more than we're already doing, which will ultimately fall on the property taxpayers. Having said that, I don't necessarily oppose your amendment because of the subject matter, and I only rise to say that when we do things in this body that make us feel good and are the right thing to do, we still have to be cognizant of who's paying for it. And so in this particular legislative session, our counties are taking a real hit. And while this may not be a huge number in relation to some of those other hits that the counties are taking, it's not something that we should just ignore or minimize either. So while I'm totally supportive of this, I just rise to just remind this body that no matter how well-intentioned something is, somebody has to pay for it. And we should at least have that discussion. And quite honestly, that discussion should probably be held in the committee level. And if the chair of the committee wanted to include that in this bill, taking into consideration those factors, she probably would have done it. So I just rise to point out some of those things, and members can vote however they want, obviously, and I obviously oppose racial covenants and support the intent of the amendment, but just rise to give that context. Thank you.
We're on the A12 amendment. Any final words, or I can go straight to the vote? All in favor of the A12, say aye. All those opposed, say no. The motion prevails. The A12 is adopted. I am now going to Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the A17.
Senator Draheim offers the A17, and the secretary will report the A17 amendment.
Senator Draheim moves to amend Senate File Number 2298 as follows. Page 18, lines 11 and 13, after the, insert mean end. This is the A17 amendment.
Senator Draheim to your A17 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. A few years ago, we created a community-based first-generation homebuyer down payment assistance program. And we are utilizing our community development financial institutions to do that. And there is some reporting requirements on page 18 of the bill that my amendment, the A17, adds more data so we can review the program and make sure we understand how effective it is. So you love a program, hate a program, we should still have the metrics in place to make sure the program is working. I believe the A17 does. It includes what type of home is being purchased with this program, and then it just asks for the mean and the median price. So I urge a green vote.
Senator report to the the A17 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Draheim. This is a friendly amendment.
Any other discussions on the A17? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The A17 Draheim amendment is adopted. Any other discussions or amendments? Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry, let me get to the right page here. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to offer the A20, please.
Senator Port offers the A20 amendment. The Secretary will report the A20 amendment.
Senator Port moves to amend Senate File Number 2298 as follows. Page 20, after line 18, insert. This is the A20 amendment.
Senator Port to your A20 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I know we've all been doing the hard work of trying to understand how the actions at the federal level are going to affect us here at the state level. And for the most part, we still don't know. But in the last 2 weeks, as Congress has been discussing its budget, and the president has been weighing in on housing, multiple times they have raised the idea of cutting or ending the Section 8 rental assistance housing choice voucher program. Already half of the staff that staff this program have been laid off. To be clear, if this program ended without notice, it would affect 32,000 Minnesota families, roughly 150,000 people. If this program ends, it would be disastrous for the state of Minnesota. So what this amendment does, Mr. President, is if and only if the federal government ends current vouchers rent subsidy, in that case that those people are left adrift without warning, it would put into place a 3-month eviction moratorium so that this body can come back in and figure out what we're going to do with 150,000 people homeless overnight. To summarize, this amendment would only take effect if we find that tens of thousands of Minnesotans are likely to become homeless overnight. And in that situation, this would give both those at-risk families and children a little time to find a place to live, and the state a little time to work towards a better solution than those families being forced to move to our streets, our churches, and neighbors with no lifeline or plan for the disruptions that would follow. It is if and only if that federal action happens that we would have a 3-month pause in evictions limited only to those folks who have been affected in order to bring a plan together. Members, I ask for a yes vote.
Senator Draheim to the A20 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to challenge the germaneness of this amendment. I do not have an issue with the underlying amendment. I just don't think there's anything in the bill that has to do with tenant law, and I think that's traveling separately. So under 35.2 relates to a different subject, and we've had a lot of discussion on it. And I don't disagree we need to do something. If the feds would react, I think we have time to get something done. I just don't think this bill is a proper place for it. So I challenge their germaneness under 35.2.
Senator Draheim challenges this amendment on germaneness. Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. President. If this housing bill is not a moment to talk about the potential loss of housing for 150,000 Minnesotans, I don't know what is. We need a backstop in case this happens, and that is what this amendment does. It is clearly related to housing, and I ask for you to find it germane.
Senator Bratt, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm just asking for consistency throughout the session. You've been very narrow in your definition of germaneness, and I hope that you'll continue to maintain that precedent. Thank you.
So
Advice,
give me a
Mr.
minute.
President?
Thank you.
Advice, Mr. President?
Last person to give advice before I take some other advice. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Advice to you. I would just say, this amendment deals with tenant law, and it's not germane to the bill. There's nothing in the bill that relates to this. I don't even think this would go to the Housing Committee. I think it would actually go to the Judiciary and Civil Law Committee. So, Mr. President, I'd ask you to find this point of order well taken.
Thank you. Give me a minute, members. After hearing all advice, I find that the point of order is well taken. Members, any additional amendments or discussions? Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File Number 2298, a bill for an act relating to housing, establishing a budget for the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, making policy, finance, and technical changes to housing provisions.
Third reading. Any other discussion? Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it. Before the author of the bill got into some of the details of what this legislation would do or some of the elements of it, she talked about the cost of home ownership and how making sure that we keep housing affordable is absolutely critical. And to me, Mr. President, it comes down to what we commonly refer to in this country as the American dream. The American dream of owning a home, building some wealth for yourself, and creating a life for yourself and maybe your kids that were even better than the generations that came before you. And we spent a lot of time here today in the Minnesota Senate talking about the cost of housing and how we want to keep it affordable and how we think that folks trying to achieve the American dream is becoming more and more difficult. And it's easy for us as lawmakers to want to try to use legislation or state government or mandates or other mechanisms, spending money, for example, to try to do what we think may be a good thing, to make housing more affordable. However, sometimes when we look across the broad spectrum of laws and legislation and mandates and things that we pass and put into law, we either conveniently, because it doesn't support our argument, or just simply out of unawareness, forget that there are other laws that we pass that impact the affordability of housing. I'll give you a couple examples, Mr. President. The cost of utilities in the state of Minnesota, folks' electric bills over the last year have gone up on average about 5%. After a sweeping energy bill was passed here in the state of Minnesota not too long ago that I think some folks in this chamber warned would probably lead to an increase in cost of utility bills for the people of Minnesota. Also, when we talk about affordable housing, property taxes for Minnesotans over the last couple of years have seen increases in some areas up to double digits when we're talking about the percentage of increase in property taxes. Mr. President, if that's not directly related to affordable housing, I don't know what is. And you know what the result of some of those property tax increases were at the county and city level? Mandates that came out of the Minnesota legislature. When you look at property insurance premiums, up 15% in 2023, and members, over the last 7 years, property insurance premiums up 39% in the state of Minnesota. Why? Well, a lot of it has to do with many of the laws that get passed out of this chamber, which ultimately impact the people of Minnesota, their pocketbooks, and how much it costs to afford a home or how much your rent is every month. Last but not least, on the topic of property taxes, Mr. President, at least 59 Minnesota school districts are projected to have significant budget deficits. What are many of those districts going to have to do by the nature of massive budget deficits? They're going to come to property tax increases. thereby increasing the cost of home ownership and making housing in the American dream that much less affordable and harder to realize. Government subsidies and mandates are driving prices up, the prices of homes and rents up in Minnesota, not down. They're not even holding them steady. They're increasing them at a rapid rate that's unsustainable. And I hate to break it to you, somebody said it earlier, the state of Minnesota has to look in the mirror and ask itself how much of its fingerprints are on the housing affordability crisis here in the state of Minnesota. Rather than more mandates, increased fees, costly permits, etc., we need to look at ways that actually make housing affordable and not continue to pass a slew of legislation or mandates to drive up the cost of utilities, taxes, insurance, you name it. That's how we keep housing affordable in the state of Minnesota. That's how we help more people here in our great state realize the American dream, Mr. President. Thank you.
Senator Latz.
Mr. President and members, Senate File 2298 makes really important investments in affordable housing in Minnesota. And I commend the work on this bill to prevent homelessness, to improve the infrastructure in greater Minnesota, to stabilize housing communities. There's a lot of important things in this bill, and I support the bill. There's one piece I wanted to address, and I'm glad that I heard the previous senator speak, because my point responds in part to what he had to say. And that has to do with the Homeowners Insurance Task Force. Part of the purpose of the task force is to, well, the main point of the task force seems to be to determine why there are increases in property insurance, homeowners insurance in Minnesota. And I would substantially disagree with the statement that a lot of it has to do with the regulations that we're passing and the mandates that we're passing here. The fact is, as I understand it, the primary driver of the increase in homeowners insurance and property damage insurance is the massive increase in property damage resulting from storms. From storms. Wind damage, hail damage, water damage. And that is primarily driven by climate change. So I don't think it's fair to characterize the need for a look at these drivers as based on what we're passing in terms of regulations. To that end, I'm gratified to see that there's a climate change science specialist on the task force that is created here, because in part, the outcomes of a task force evaluation are determined largely by the membership on that task force. Obviously, it's the membership that makes the recommendations, but we, as a legislature, when we create the task force, can have an impact on what those outcomes are, what those recommendations are, what viewpoints get espoused in the report by determining who is on the task force or what organizations or viewpoints go on to that task force when they begin their work and work through their process. There is one addition. There are a number of substantive additions that went on in the 821 amendment to the membership on that task force. And there were two floor additions here today that were the goals, expanding the goals and mandated work and analysis by that task force, one of which was to evaluate the impact of tort reform, or the need, perhaps, for tort reform. If one goes back and takes a look at that, I'm glad we'll have this information when it comes to us, when this task force makes its report. But again, it's not the liability laws that are driving homeowners insurance increases. It simply is not. It's the storm damage. And it's happening more, well, a lot in Minnesota because we've had a lot of storms, more than usual in the last several years. But it's especially happening in Oklahoma and California and Florida and other parts of the country where there's North Carolina, where they're seeing massive deluges from once-in-a-century storms that are happening more frequently now than once in a century, that are flooding out homes, that they're flooding out businesses. Rivers are overflowing their banks, they're creating mudslides, they're blowing roofs off, more tornadoes, more hurricanes. That is what is driving this massive increase in property damages, which are being recouped because they are creating costs on the insurers. They get their money by premiums. So that's what's driving the premium increases. Now, there is one missing piece to this task force, and that is there is no representative, since tort reform is explicitly now a goal of analysis of this task force. The people that know the most about and primarily involved in bringing liability claims are the trial lawyers, the Association of Justice. They are not even on this task force. So I am glad that the author of the bill has indicated that she supports adding such a member to the task force and that she will fight to make that happen in conference committee. And I look forward to seeing that when the bill comes back before us for a final passage following conference committee. Thank you, members. Again, overall, this is a really good bill. I encourage members to vote for it.
Members, we're on the third reading, and just so we have a sense of the roadmap, the two last speakers that I'd like to recognize would be Senator Lucero and then Senator Port, because they're on the same committee and he's the lead. Is there anyone else before I go to those two? Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator Port yield for a question?
Senator Port, will you yield for a question? She will. Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Port. Senator Port, I struggle as we look at our budget here. Last biennium, we know that Minnesota had a $19 billion overcollection of taxes from the people of Minnesota, and we spent it all. And this particular budget area is one that I really struggle with. We spent about an 1,100 or 1,200% increase last biennium over the previous biennium. That was a 900, actually it was $1 billion more than the biennium before. The biennium before was something like 100 or 150 million, and the last biennium was somewhere in the range of $1.2 billion. So my question is, we spent, Senator Port, $1 billion in housing last time and homelessness prevention for a wide variety of programs, grant programs to this and loan programs to that. I could go down the list here, and someone on staff has provided a really good list that breaks out what's in this bill, and then it also includes the ones from last biennium, that $1.2 billion that was spent on housing and homelessness prevention. So my question is, what did we get? What did the people of Minnesota get for over $1 billion in spending in this area in the last biennium, above what was spent the biennium before and what was the normal baseline spending? So are there some measures that you can give us to show us how much homelessness went down in the last biennium because of huge increases in taking hardworking taxpayer money and spending it on these wide variety of programs, which I could spend probably a half hour reading the millions and millions of dollars that make up that $1.2 billion. But my question is, what did we get? What did the construction worker or the waitress get when we took their wages and spent them on this $1.2 billion in the last biennium?
Senator Port, to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members. I'm not entirely sure that going through last year's bill is relevant to the passage of this year's bill, but I will say that housing is the foundation of our communities. It is the foundation of every single person in the state of Minnesota. Every single person needs housing. It is not a thing that you may need in your life. Every person needs housing. and the outcomes that you have in every other aspect of your house, of your life, depend deeply on whether you have stable housing. So the work that we did over the last 2 years, providing stability to well over 50,000 families with FHPAP, kept families housed stably. The cost to the state of Minnesota increases substantially once people fall into homelessness. So that work with FHPAP saves the state money by making sure that people stay in housing while they are going through those crisis situations. That is a savings to the state of Minnesota. I will also say that over 2/3 of the money that we passed in the last 2 bienniums was for production. Production of housing takes more than a year. It is significant. There's a pipeline that exists. Particularly building large-scale housing often takes upwards of 2, 3, 5 years. So those are in the process. I can get you a list. There's also a report that comes into every legislator's inbox every year with a housing report from MHFA that explains exactly how that money is spent. I'm sure if you search back in your inbox, you'll be able to find that. I can get you a copy if you need it as well. But a majority of that $1 billion that we spent is going to exactly the thing that we know is driving up the cost of housing, which is production. We need more housing. And that is what we, as a body, chose to spend the money that we had, the one-time money, which production of housing is an excellent use for that one-time money. So that was the majority of the funding that we spent last year, Mr. President, and I will say the last piece of the chunk of money that we spent was for the Bring It Home program, which sets up a state voucher program, which will be coming online later this year, at a perfect timing when we are expecting cuts at the federal level for exactly that type of program. So we will be able to keep Minnesotans stably housed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Jaskowski, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Port. Well, I heard, and thank you for your comments. I heard comments that didn't really quantify anything. And we do this year after year here in the Minnesota Legislature, and it's not just this budget area, it's every budget area. I hear it from the liberal dreamers that come forward with their bills and they say, this is going to ensure that, in this case, people don't live in homelessness. Or this part of government is going to ensure that we build more houses and that our private sector builds more houses and there's more capacity in housing in this state. And this is going to ensure this. And I heard that over and over and over again as we blew through $19 billion of the people's money. And I haven't heard a statistic in this bill that says we have helped solve the identified problems. We are saying that there's a problem with homelessness. I would expect we'd have some measures from the Housing and Homelessness Committee that would say this huge amount of spending, huge amount, $1 billion plus in spending in this budget area had this positive impact that helped us solve what we thought was the problem. And members, we have not seen that. We just keep hearing that there's more and more and bigger problems. We spent $1 billion. And there's not at least one number that comes from the chair of the committee, Mr. President, not one number that says we have improved the problem by this much. I would expect that discussion would have happened through the committee. I would expect that Minnesotans would have that report that says, guess what? We spent $1 billion of your money and we improved it this much. But we didn't, and we don't. And it's a recurring fact, members. We spent 40% increase in spending in the last biennium. And we're going to hear this in, I'm certain, each budget area They're going to say, we're going to insure this, and we're going to insure this, and we're going to make it so these people don't do this, and these people are able to do this, and we're going to provide change for people who many of them maybe don't even want change and maybe like the lives they're living and would rather keep their own tax money before it's taken from them, Mr. President, and placed into another billion or 5 billion or whatever comes down the pike of additional spending that comes out of this body. But we at least owe the people of Minnesota, Mr. President, a report that shows this is what your money bought. And that's not what I'm hearing today, Mr. President. I'll be voting no on this bill, and I hope that in not only this bill in the future, but all of our budget areas, Mr. President, that we actually have a report, especially when we're spending $19 billion, that we can show the people of Minnesota this is what the huge amount of labor that you put into this, that we took from you and your livelihood in order to do this. This is what it bought for you. We need to hear that. We're not hearing that. All we're doing here is spending money in each of these budget areas. And I'll credit you, Senator Port, in your committee. I don't see any taxes or fee increases in here. I know there's a bunch of them in the other budget areas. Maybe I missed one, but it seems like a leaner bill than I expected, but it's still an increase in spending, and we're not hearing a report. We're not hearing success. We're not hearing decreased occurrences of homelessness. We're not hearing of a better housing situation because of the huge amount of spending government. If we're going to spend that much money, we need a report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion before I go to Senator Lucero? Senator Nelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Well, obviously, we all know how important it is that every person has a reliable, safe place, a home, no matter what if it's an apartment, a condo, a home. So there is that very important underpinning of this bill. But I have two questions for Senator Port, if she might yield.
Senator Port, will you yield? She will yield. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Port, I am concerned about a couple lines on your spreadsheet. I am hoping I am not understanding them correctly. I believe that home ownership remains the best generational wealth builder. So when I look at the bill before us today, I want to know, how are we helping Minnesotans partake in generational wealth building regarding that first home, that home ownership? And I look at line 29, and I'm wondering if Senator Port could explain a little bit about the first generation home buyer down payment assistance, how much our budget that we passed last year, this current budget, as the budget projections came forward, should have been spent for first generation home buyer down payment assistance, and how much is in her bill.
Senator Port, to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Nelson. Senator Nelson, if you would actually just drop down 2 lines to line 31. We invested the money in the community-based first-generation down payment assistance program because that had a broader reach across the state, and we wanted to make sure that Greater Minnesota was able to access that it was able to work with USDA mortgages, and with a variety of mortgages, and not simply the MHFA mortgage, which is what the typical down payment assistance program works with. So this just broadens who is able to use it and what mortgages they're able to use it. So we put the investment into line 31.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Port. I think that is a positive move, so I appreciate that. I have one other question for you, Senator Port, and that has to do with line 11, and that is talking about a transfer, I believe, from the tax bill. If you could explain that a little bit, please.
Senator Port, to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Nelson, this was a housing tax fund that nothing was ever taken out of. It just moves into there, but it was never appropriated anywhere, so we canceled that fund and sent it back to the general fund.
Senator Nelson, any additional questions?
No,
before we go
those
to
are all
Senator
my questions.
Lucero?
Thank you.
Senator Lucero, it is now your time. Senator Lucero, and Senator Lucero, after you, it would be Senator Port, and then we will vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Port. Thank you, members of the Housing Committee, and thank you, members of the body here as we debate this. I love the discussion because I love housing. I love the points that have been made by members on both sides of the aisle. Very valid points. We are in a crisis. And it wasn't that long ago that my wife and I were in our early 20s. And when we were looking, we were hunting for that first house, and we were able to find that first house, and we were able to purchase that first house at a substantially lower price. I have significant concern. This now being the third year on the Senate Housing Committee, we've heard the voices spanning the spectrum. Those that are trying to buy their first house, those that are renting, those that are on the other end, empty nesters or seniors moving out of their house, selling their house, going to facilities, those on fixed incomes. And we heard that in the conversation with Senator Abeler's amendment. There's a hardship across the board. There's a lack of supply, and the external factors that are dissuading people from building more supply, that are increasing the hardships on more supply, are exacerbating the housing crisis in Minnesota. One of the things that I would have loved to have included in this bill that's not in this bill, and I understand it's not germane, but there's a number of avenues that we can examine and provide incentives to build supply. One of those ideas was to exempt the sales tax on building materials. I think there is, well, I know there's bipartisan support for such an idea. Unfortunately, that bill never saw the light of day. We weren't even able to have a conversation. How much would that benefit the increase in supply? There's a number of costs that continue to put pressure on the ever-increasing price. Among them are mandates that have been passed by this very body just in a handful of years, last year's. I was talking to a subcontractor just last summer, actually fall, a subcontractor who pours foundations. And I explained to him, do you know the wage theft provisions that were recently passed and how you're going to now be subjected to additional scrutiny and the overhead necessary if there are allegations made against you? And he had no idea. But it's that small overhead that is going to be increasing his cost to do business, which will increase the cost of pouring foundations. And similar costs are also increasing when it comes to sick and safe time, paid family leave, and a myriad of other mandates. So when it comes to the cost of housing, and we look at the price that Senator Gruenhagen cited year-old numbers, all of these costs are being rolled forward. And now the average cost is north of $500,000 in Minnesota to build. The dream is fleeting for many. It is fleeting. After graduating high school, after graduating college, sometimes before graduating college, before or after marriage at a younger age, though the significant milestone in nearly everyone's life is that dream of homeownership. And that milestone, again, is fleeting. And when that is fleeting in Minnesota, People are fleeing Minnesota. And so with that, I sincerely appreciate the conversations we did have. I appreciate Senator Port's willingness to have these conversations and the diligence in this issue. We share a passion. Unfortunately, this bill, there's no way, it is an impossible task for government to throw enough money at programs to solve this issue. We cannot spend enough money in the area of housing to increase supply. We cannot spend enough money on matching grants with strings attached that are going to solve this problem. The only way to solve this problem is to take a serious look at the drivers that are increasing construction and homeownership. And among the homeownership costs is property taxes. It's the only way we're going to solve this, and unfortunately that is largely absent in this bill. So again, I appreciate the diligence and the passion from Senator Port and other members. Thank you, Mr. President. Unfortunately, this bill is just something I won't be able to support at this time. Thank you.
Senator Port, before we vote, we're on final passage as amended to Senate File 2298. Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to clear up a few things. Perhaps earlier numbers I said were not heard, but I'll add a few more. Through the consolidated RFP in 2024, Minnesota Housing Finance awarded $340 million to projects that will create and preserve 4,720 homes, apartments, and manufactured home communities. They will contribute $800 million in total development costs and support 7,000 annual jobs. An additional $148 million was added the next year as well. Senator Drazkowski raised concerns about not having a report. The Minnesota Housing Finance produces about 12 reports a year, and Senator Drazkowski, I put last year's report in your inbox for you. Members, housing is the foundation of our lives. Every Minnesotan, every community relies on housing. Our committee has really been a bipartisan, collegial committee because we all understand this. We hear it from our own communities, from our own districts, that it is something that every family is facing in the state of Minnesota. I want to thank the committee for its work. I think we really had very strong discussion this year. I wish we could do more with this bill. I think we all know that this isn't going to solve the problems, but it will provide some stability. And in a moment when there is chaos and confusion and fear for folks, stability is key. So members, I hope you will vote yes. I think it is important for us to envision a world where everyone has a safe, stable home. Those who want to have that dream of home ownership are able to achieve it, and people can live in the communities of their choice. That is work we have yet to do, but today we can provide a little stability, and I hope you'll vote green. Thank you.
Members, we're on final passage as amended to Senate File number 2298. The Secretary will take the roll. Senator Kunesh, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Mr. President, Senator Dibble votes aye.
Senator Dibble votes aye.
And Senator Wickland votes aye.
And Senator Wickland votes aye. Senator Jasinski, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7, I see you say give me a minute. No problem. Members, please vote. Senator Duckworth, are you voting? Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Coleman votes aye.
Senator Coleman votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There have been 40 ayes and 24 noes. The bill is passed and its title agreed to. Members, we will now go to House File 1792, Senator Mohamed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate File 1792 is a very technical bill. Last year, we passed a bill to reform Minnesota's contract for deed law in response to predatory practices that harmed many buyers, especially those in our immigrant communities. One family, for example, used contract for deed as an interest-free path to home ownership. They lost their $73,000 down payment and $170,000 in monthly payments. These contracts often skip inspections and appraisals, and some include hidden interest fees, despite being marketed as interest-free. In 2022 alone, over 1,800 contract for deed sales were signed in Minnesota's 11 largest counties. The bill focused on protecting home buyers by distinguishing between everyday sellers like family members or mom and pop owners and those in the business of selling homes through contract for deed. We exempted a range of individual sales from the new rules, such as those between relatives. Since the bill passed, we worked with stakeholders to identify technical fixes and clarify the language. This year's bill makes those technical changes and adds 2 new exemptions: sales by the state or local government and sales by sole owner, those individuals who are already exempted. There is no opposition to this bill. It has been vetted by the Minnesota Realtor Association, the real property section of the State Bar, and the Minnesota Land Trust Title Association. This bill is about making sure the law works as intended, protecting buyers and supporting their fair path to home ownership. I want to thank the families who shared their stories and everybody who worked together on this, and I will take questions.
Any other discussion on House File 1792? Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
House File number 1792, a bill for an act relating to contracts for deed, modifying definition of investor-seller.
Third reading. Any other discussion? Senator Kreun.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House File 1792 is an improvement over the contract for deed language that was passed last year. So I support the bill and thank Senator Mohamed for bringing it forward. I would be remiss if I didn't stand up and defend the contract for deed as I've done in the past. I think last year's bill went too far and will prohibit legitimate uses for contracts for deed. And I think that is evident here in this bill as well, where we are exempting state agencies and political subdivisions from this act, which just goes to show you that if a county that engages in contract for deeds could possibly be considered churning under this statute, that perhaps we need to take a broader look at what churning is and how it applies to non-government actors that engage in contract for deed transactions. That's all I'm going to say about it. I think this is an improvement. I encourage a yes vote, but I think the conversation about how we deal with contract for deeds needs to continue. Thank you.
The Secretary will take the roll on House File 1792. This is final passage, members. Senator Jasinski, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Coleman votes aye.
Senator Coleman votes aye. Senator Kunesh, those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Mr. Senator, Senator Dibble votes aye.
Senator Dibble votes aye.
And Senator Wickland also votes aye.
And Senator Wickland votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 63 ayes and 0 noes, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Members, we are now go to Senate file number 2847. Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill with statutory forms that are the result of a law that we passed last year. Members may recall in the Debt Fairness Act, we passed some revisions to bank garnishments and wage garnishments. And the forms in this bill before us today are reflective of those changes. A group of stakeholders got together over the interim to work to make changes to the forms to bring them in line with the new law, and also make them, bring them into plain English, make them more readable and more user-friendly. And so there is agreement from all stakeholders, everyone who works in this space, from, they were convened by the Attorney General's office, including the courts, attorneys, banks, employers, consumers, advocacy groups. You will see being passed out to your desks is a letter signed by all of those groups as well. Everyone is in agreement and has worked together on these forms. It just then puts them into statute so they can be in use moving forward. And with that, Mr. President, I do have the A2 amendment.
Senator Boldon offers the A2 amendment. The secretary will report the A2 amendment.
Senator Boldon moves to amend Senate file number 2847 as follows. Page 101, delete sections 21 and 22 and insert. This is the A2 amendment.
Senator Boldon to your A2 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is just a technical change. The original language in the law was to have these forms in place and in use by April 1st. We are obviously after April 1st, and so this just changes that new date to June 1st to be sure that we are all in alignment and in use of those new forms. So we'd ask for a green vote.
Any other discussion on the A2 amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the A2 amendment say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The A2 amendment is adopted. Now we are on Senate File 2847 as amended. Any other discussion? Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File number 2847, a bill for an act relating to commerce, modifying various statutory forms pertaining to garnishment.
Third reading. Any other discussion? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on final passage of Senate File number 2847 as amended. Senator Kunesh, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Mr. President, Senator Wickland votes aye.
Senator Wickland votes aye.
And Senator Dibble votes aye.
Senator Dibble votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Coleman votes aye.
Senator Coleman votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There have been 61 ayes and 0 nays. The bill is passed and is titled agreed to. Members, we'll now go to House File 2184. Senator Kunesh.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill, Senate File 472, allows for an exempt for paying.
Senator Kunesh, this is House File 2184.
2184, you're correct. This will exempt the Office of Ombudsperson for American Indian Families from court fee requirements. This exemption allows the office to allocate more resources to the advocacy and support of American Indian families. And so we know that there is sometimes systematic inconsistency across the courts when it comes to these fees, and we would like to make it so that the ombudsperson does not have to pay these fees.
Any other discussion on House File number 2184? Seeing none, the Secretary will give House File 2184 its third reading.
House File Number 2184, a bill for an act relating to court fees, exempting the Office of Ombudsperson for American Indian Families from court fee requirements.
Third reading. Any other discussion before we go to final passage or the vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on House File 2184. Senator Boldon, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report that Senator Dibble votes aye.
Senator Dibble votes aye.
And Senator Wickland votes aye.
And Senator Wickland votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Abler votes aye.
Senator Abler votes aye.
And thank you, Mr. President. Senator Coleman votes aye.
And Senator Coleman votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There have been 61 ayes and 0 nays. The bill is passed and its title agreed to. We'll now go to House File Number 1014, Senator Dahms.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And House File 1014 deals with the Minnesota Guarantee Insurance Association. And this bill will help clear up a couple of things. First of all, the Minnesota Insurance Guarantee Association is a nonprofit statute entity, protects Minnesota policyholders and claimants in the event that a property and casualty insurance company becomes insolvent. Minnesota Guarantee Association is comprised of most insurance companies licensed to sell property and casualty insurance in Minnesota. If an insurer is deemed insolvent and ordered by the courts to be liquidated, the Minnesota law enables the Minnesota Guarantee Association to provide protection up to the statutory limits. The Minnesota-based policyholders and claimants who are insured by the insolvent insurer will have protection under the Minnesota Guarantee Association. Section 60.C-09 excludes coverage of policyholders of insolvent insurers with a net worth more than $25 million. To comply with the high net worth exclusion law, the Minnesota Guarantee Association needs to send out a request and have the folks send that request back stating their net worth to see if they're over the excluded limit of $25 million. The problem is when we have these losses, it's hard to get the folks to return the affidavit stating what their net worth is, and they have 60 days to do that. So at the end of the day, what this bill does is it allows the Minnesota Guarantee Association to send out the request. If it's not returned within 60 days, the Insurance Guarantee Association can assume that they have a value over $25 million and that they'll be responsible to pay the claims. This would be deemed that way until the policyholder sends in his net worth affidavit showing his threshold is either above or below that. Mr. Chair, this is the same as Senate File 1758, and I do have a technical amendment.
And what is the amendment, Senator Dahms?
The amendment is 14A1.
Senator Dahms offers the amendment 14A1. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Dahms moves to amend House File Number 1014 as follows. Page 1, line 21, delete Board of Directors. This is the A1 amendment.
Senator Dahms, to your A1 amendment.
What this amendment does is it's a technical amendment. It cleans up some language. On page 1, line 21, it deletes Board of Directors and inserts Association. And again, that change is made on page 2, line 1, and on page 2, line 2. What it amounts to is it's an association so that it's the members of the association and not Board of Directors making that decision.
Members, any other discussion on the A1 amendment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The A1 is adopted. Senator Dahms to House File 1412 as amended. Any other discussion? Senator Dahms, anything else?
No, thank you.
Any other discussion on House File 1014 as amended? Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
House File Number 1014, a bill for an act relating to commerce, allowing the Board of Directors of the Minnesota Insurance Guarantee Association to request financial information from insureds.
Third reading, any other discussion? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on final passage of House File 1014 as amended. Senator Kunesh, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Oh, Mr. President, Senator Wickland votes aye.
Senator Wickland votes aye.
And Senator Dibble votes aye.
Senator Dibble votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Abler votes aye.
Senator Abler votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Coleman votes aye.
And Senator Coleman votes aye. All senators having voted who desires a vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 61 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and is titled agreed to. Members, we are now on House File 747. Senator Kreun.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill updates the Business Corporations Act to keep Minnesota current with best practices in developing norms in corporate governance. The legislation comes from the Minnesota State Bar Association business law section, and it was carefully developed by the Bar Association through a long process that included careful study of recent changes to the Model Business Corporation Act, as well as developments in Delaware, which is the leading state for corporate law. Mr. President, this bill changes the internal governance of corporations, how it deals with shareholders, officers, and directors, and how they interact with one another. It does not deal with corporations' external affairs and how they interact with the public. And there are several provisions in here. I'll just quickly go through some of the highlights. The definition of beneficial ownership is modified to make clear that a beneficial owner includes a person who owns at least 10% of the beneficial interests of a trust or estate, or serves as a trustee for a trust or estate. The bill also sets forth how a corporation can adopt emergency provisions in its bylaws, or if no emergency provisions are adopted in the bylaws, it sets forth the power that exists to act, for the corporation to act in an event of an emergency. The bill also, under the current Business Corporation Act, certain defective corporate acts are deemed void, and there's no way to address them. Under this act, it would provide a process for ratifying or validating defective corporate acts, transactions, and stock issuances. This will make the Business Corporations Act more user-friendly and forgiving and save time and money. It also authorizes for articles of incorporation to highlight the right to adopt shareholder control agreements, and also establishes dissenters' rights for shareholders who object. There's been recent Delaware case law that questions whether a board must approve a final agreement or whether a board can approve an agreement in substantially final form. This bill makes it clear that a board can approve an agreement in substantially final form. It also gives permission for Minnesota corporations to voluntarily exculpate corporate officers for personal liability, except in certain circumstances. This already exists for a board of directors, but this is extended then to make it optional to include officers, and this will bring Minnesota in line with a Delaware practice. Shareholders must approve on this before it goes into effect. It adds equitable enforcement for beneficial owners and holders of voting trust certificates to inspect corporate books and records. Shareholders already have this right under Minnesota law. This just adds those beneficial owners and holders of voting trust certificates. And finally, Mr. President, the bill provides permission for parties to include provisions in merger agreements to allow a target to seek damages against a buyer who has breached an agreement. Those are some of the highlights, and Mr. President, while these changes in the bill maybe aren't very exciting to a lot of people. They will help ensure that Minnesota remains an attractive place to incorporate and do business and create jobs. With that, I would encourage members to vote yes. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on House File number 747? Seeing none, the Secretary will give House File 747 its third reading.
House File number 747, a bill for an act relating to business organizations, modifying the Minnesota Business Corporation Act.
Third reading. Any other discussion? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on House File 747. Senator Kunesh, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Mr. President, Senator Dibble votes aye.
Senator Dibble votes aye.
And Senator Wickland votes aye.
And Senator Wickland votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Abler votes aye.
Senator Abler votes aye.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
And Senator Coleman votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There have been 61 ayes and 0 nays. The bill is passed and its title agreed to. Members, we'll now go to House File 129. Senator Utke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, as you said, House File 129, it modifies reporting requirements. Members, this bill requires the Director of Child Sex Trafficking Prevention to submit a program evaluation to the legislature. This statute that is being amended falls under the Sexual Assault Victim Statute, and the program evaluation that is our topic of discussion today involves the Safe Harbor for Sexually Exploited Youth statute. The Director of Child Sex Trafficking Prevention is responsible for the development and providing comprehensive training on sexual exploitation of youth for social service professionals, medical professionals, public health workers, and the criminal justice professionals. The director is responsible for collecting, organizing, maintaining, and disseminating information, monitoring and applying for federal grant programs, managing the grant programs and the requests for proposals for grants, identifying best practices, and conducting a comprehensive evaluation of the statewide program for safe harbor of sexually exploited youth. Youth 24 years of age or younger are eligible for all the services and supports. Back to the bill language that's before us, this bill adds that the director must submit the updated evaluation to the chairs and ranking minority members in the Senate and House of Representatives committees with jurisdiction over health and public safety in each odd-numbered year. Currently, the director only has to submit the evaluation to the Commissioner of Health. It's simple and to the point. Members, I ask for your support.
Members, we're on House File number 129. Any discussion on House Files 129? Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
House File number 129, a bill for an act relating to public safety, requiring Director of Child Sex Trafficking Prevention to submit a program evaluation each odd-numbered year to the legislature.
Third reading. Any other discussion? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on final passage of House File number 129. Senator Jasinski, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Abler votes aye.
Senator Abler votes aye.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
And thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dornick votes aye.
And Senator Dornick votes aye. Senator Kunesh.
Mr. President, Senator Wickland votes aye.
Senator Wickland votes aye.
And Senator Dibble votes aye.
And Senator Dibble votes aye. All Senator, oh, I see, Senator, I see you. Sorry, I'll wait. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There have been 61 ayes and 0 noes. The bill is passed and its title agreed to. We will now go to the final bill that's on today's special orders calendar. That is House File number 1346. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this bill passed the other body 134 to nothing. And it has to do with mandatory reporters. Currently, of the 45 minutes of annual mandatory reporter training, only 3 minutes are dedicated to recognizing the signs of abuse required to mandate reporters to be certain of maltreatment. So what this bill does is it mandates that the training is half spent on identifying signs of suspected maltreatment or abuse to children. With that, Mr. President, in 2022, we had 80,000 reports of potential maltreatment of children across the state of Minnesota. 80% of those reports came from mandatory reporters. So you can see how important this program is. What this bill does is try to improve it so we can do a better job protecting our children. Thank you.
Any other discussion on House File 1346? Seeing none, the Secretary will give House File 1346 its third reading.
House File number 1346, a bill for an act relating to maltreatment, modifying training requirements for mandatory reporters.
Third reading. Any other discussion on House File 1346? Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill, the Secretary will take the roll on final passage of House File 1346. Senator Kunesh, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Mr. President, Senator Wickland votes the aye.
Senator Wickland votes aye.
And Senator Dipple votes aye.
Senator Dipple votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Abler votes aye.
Senator Abler votes aye.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dornick votes aye.
And Senator Dornick votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There have been 60 ayes and 0 nays. The bill is passed and its title agreed to. Members, we will now go to the 13th order of business. Announcements of Senate interest. Any announcements of Senate interest? Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are 1 week away from the I-90 Highway 14 party, a celebration of southern Minnesota. It's brought to you by the Greater Mankato Growth. I hope you can all attend. Senator Frentz, I know, will be there hosting as well. This is a great celebration. It's located at the beautiful CHS Field, just a few blocks away, so I hope you can enjoy. It is from 5 to 9 p.m. I will remind you again next week, but this is the 1 week notice that we are 1 week away from the I-90 Highway 14 party. Thank you.
Without objection, the following senators will be excused from today's session. That will be Westrom, Lang all day, Abler 3:55 to 4 p.m., Senator Pappas from 3:55 until the end, Senator Housley from 4 o'clock until the end. Any other announcements of Senate interest? Seeing none, Senator Murphy for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Wednesday, April 23rd at 12 noon.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Senate is now adjourned.